What is one fact you learned that you wish you hadn't? The human anus can expand to 8-9 inches. Raccoons can get into a hole 6 inches across. My pet raccoon can confirm. If you sneeze hard enough, you can fracture a rib. But try to suppress a sneeze and you might rupture a blood vessel in your head or neck. When my wife was 34 weeks pregnant, she coughed real hard and broke a rib. That poor woman gave birth naturally with no epidural, low white cell count, and a broken rib. She is the toughest person I know. I hope you changed all the diapers for a while, because holy poop, as a woman this is one of my nightmares. If you are hung upside down and sawed in half, crotch to head, you wouldn't die until the saw hit your lungs. How the duck did you find this out? It was a popular torture/execution back in medieval times. Also, you know, common knowledge of anatomy, since there isn't anything immediately vital in between your balls and lungs. Edit. Okay guys, geez, I get it. I forgot about the lower aorta and renal arteries. I thought they just served chicken and you get to watch jousting. There's a certain species of beetle where the male drills a hole into the female with his pee-pee to create a vagina in order to reproduce. There's a species of redditor that does this with anything they find lying around the house. Give man a coconut, he'll eat and drink for a day. Give a redditor a coconut and he'll have a story for the front page that most people alive will be forgotten forever within a couple of generations. 4 at most. That means you, me, your friends, lovers, everyone. Coco is a kids movie, but it portrayed this concept quite beautifully. Emo. The oldest name known to history is from roughly 5,000 years ago. Humans have been anatomically modern, meaning our bodies and minds have been the same, for about 300,000 years. That means for 98% of human history, individual names are completely lost to us. The rest have been lost forever. That the skin of your lips are same as the skin at your anus. Now every time I lick my lips I feel weird. Brings a whole new meaning to pucker up. Cats and dogs that are white and have blue eyes are almost certainly deaf. Definitely not the worst fact that'll be in this thread, but just depressing. Whenever you see a cute kitty or puppy, they got a poop hand of recessive genes and are most likely totally deaf. Have a cat who had one brown eye, one blue eye, snowy fluffy white, but absolutely deaf. You scream right next to him, and he only looks over cause he can feel it, not hear it. Within 3 days of death, the enzymes from your digestive system begin to digest your body. Self-post-mortem. Kissing makes a tube with pulses at both ends. This is my favorite. My dad told me my stepmother is into torture, so there's that. How did that come up in conversation? Hey owl mystery, can you pass me the pepper? Also, your stepmother is into torture. I grew up Christian, and it was a hard pill to swallow, realizing that being Christian doesn't mean you're automatically a good person. Approximately 25,000 people die of starvation every day. I mean, I'd rather know than not, but there's no forgetting it. Years ago I watched an episode of the show Monsters Inside Me where this guy was doing something outside and a fly flew into his eye. It only made contact with his eyeball for like a millisecond, but it was enough for it to lay eggs. After they hatched they started eating his eye from the inside, and he was starting to go blind until a doctor figured out what was wrong. Since I watched that I get super paranoid whenever a fly goes anywhere near my face because of the fact that something like this can possibly happen to me. I used to love that show, but man, if it didn't make you think every little thing would kill you. In one episode a boy contracted a parasite through a cloud of dust. He was just running and playing, and he and his friends were kicking up dirt, and he inhaled a parasite, and it killed him. For a couple years I got paranoid going outside after that. Dolphin. For pleasure. They also bite the heads off of fishes, and with them. Also females have multiple paths in there so that they don't always get pregnant. They also other animals as well, sometimes to death. Also, they purposefully get themselves stung by pufferfish so they can get high off the venom, and they share the pufferfish. Yes, this means dolphins understand puff puff pass. That your bones are wet. No, I don't like that. If you break both of your femurs you can bleed to death without any blood leaving your body. The decade of 2010s is almost at the end. There are kids born on/after 9/11 that will become adults this year. Edit. Clarity: not all kids, but there will be 18-year-olds who weren't alive for 9/11 starting this year. About duck pee. I used to live by a pond, and let me tell you, ducks each other like it's absolutely nobody's business. Just keep walking. Quack quack. Are you sure you want to do this? You'll probably have some up answers. When a whale ejaculates, applies to all species. Exact amounts vary though. They release 30-60 gallons of semen. Only 10-15% makes it into the female. We are truly swimming in a sea of semen. It's not salt that makes the ocean salty. Slowly backs out of the ocean. Roughly one person commits suicide every 40 seconds. Edit. There goes another one. It makes me feel so useless knowing people out there are killing theirself, but I'm lying here in bed doing cool when that's the best I can do. That Reddit is actually a CIA social experiment. I have way too little trouble believing that a lot of people don't pronounce psyche properly. It entirely depends on the country you're in. The CEO of IKEA himself calls it IKEA when giving interviews or keynotes in English speaking countries, but then calls it by the Swedish pronunciation of EEKR when in Scandinavian countries. IKEA. There's no actual cure for cerebral palsy once it occurs, and docs don't seem to believe a cure can be found, yet it's the most common cause of disability in children worldwide, according to some research. It's not a genetic condition or anything. For the most part, it's a brain injury incurred most frequently at birth and sometimes just before. It's actually f***ing horrible. I was really scared my 18-month-old had it when she was younger, as she had a strong left-hand preference. I mean, up until the point of birth, the baby is perfectly normal, and then because a cord gets wrapped around its neck, or the obstetrician makes a mistake and bam, cerebral palsy. It's actually the most common birth injury that obgyn's get sued for. Harry Potter can't blink. Daniel Radcliffe has dyspraxia, which is a semi-common neurological issue that affects coordination. Red velvet is just dyed chocolate. Took the magic out. I learned this a while ago, and it blew my mind. Red velvet still doesn't taste like chocolate cake though. No matter how hard I work, I will never have enough to save for retirement or pay for adequate healthcare. That my grandpa had to get a new phone number because his old one was tied up with a swingers club and a prostitution ring. I know this because he texted me that thinking he was messaging someone else. Story time. My grandpa is a messed up guy. Has been mixed up in drugs for a long time, crack specifically. Has been on and off of it for years, and my family would go through spurts of seeing him and not seeing him. When he wasn't using, we saw him a lot, but when he was, we never saw him. I knew he did drugs, but randomly one night at work, I just got a text from a random number that ended up being him. He was meaning to text who I can only assume to be his dealer or something, but he sent it to me. That text was saying that his old number got tied up in a swingers club and a prostitution ring. I think the weirdest thing to me is that he's doing all this and has 75. I wish I'd never seen that picture of what the nerves in a horse's hoof looks like. Also, that picture of what newborn horse hooves look like gives me the wibblers just thinking about it. A parasite that slowly eats your brain and eventually kill you, that you can get from having dirty water go up your nose. I think I read that it can happen if you swim in a lake or a pond or something like that. It was terrifying to think about it. Yep, when I was in high school, a girl a grade above me made national news when she caught a brain-eating amoeba while whitewater rafting and died 11 days later. You really made me read that with my own two eyes. It just terrified me even more. Bipolar and BP disorder shortens lifespan from 9 to 20 years. Smoking reduces life by roughly 8 years. I'm killing myself by being alive. Are those stats skewed by a massively increased chance of suicide? That Reddit is actually a CIA social experiment. I have way too little trouble believing that a lot of people don't pronounce psyche properly. It entirely depends on the country you're in. The CEO of IKEA himself calls it IKEA when giving interviews or keynotes in English speaking countries, but then calls it by the Swedish pronunciation of EEKR when in Scandinavian countries. IKEA. There's no actual cure for cerebral palsy once it occurs, and docs don't seem to believe a cure can be found, yet it's the most common cause of disability in children worldwide, according to some research. It's not a genetic condition or anything. For the most part, it's a brain injury incurred most frequently at birth and sometimes just before. It's actually f***ing horrible. I was really scared my 18-month-old had it when she was younger, as she had a strong left-hand preference. I mean, up until the point of birth, the baby is perfectly normal, and then because a cord gets wrapped around its neck, or the obstetrician makes a mistake and bam, cerebral palsy. It's actually the most common birth injury that obgyn's get sued for.